Today, modern cars need to be more than just attractive, comfortable, and powerful performers. They also need to be safe. To ensure this, safety officials in the US run crash tests to determine official safety ratings for customers. But another, lesser-known test has grown into prominence over the past few decades: the infamous moose test. So what exactly is the moose test? If you assume that this refers to hitting a moose with a car at high speeds, you're not far off. Instead, the moose test is an evasive maneuver test developed in Northern Europe. The name comes from these big-ass animals that would often appear in the road without warning, causing drivers to slam on the brakes or swerve around them. The aim is to measure the ability of a vehicle to avoid hitting an obstacle, how stable the car remains during these severe conditions, and whether or not the onboard safety tech does what it's supposed to do without having the car skid or roll over. Unfortunately, some cars fail spectacularly. Luckily for you, you clicked on this video, because today you're going to learn about 7 cars that fail the moose test. So why is hitting a moose so bad? You may have heard one of the most important driving safety tips is to never swerve if an animal jumps in front of your car. Dog, cat, deer, raccoon, never swerve. For most drivers, swerving is an extremely natural instinct, but unfortunately it's also a potentially deadly one. If you swerve, you could hit a tree or an oncoming vehicle at high speeds, which is far worse than turning grandma's mitten boots into a furry pancake. But there's one exception to this general rule: a big-ass moose. If a moose steps in front of your path, you might want to swerve. The moose is one of the most deadliest animals you can hit on the road, coming in at a massive 1,300 pounds and standing at a height of over 6 feet. Hitting a moose on the highway has a 99% chance of putting you in an early grave. When a car hits a moose, you'll probably strike its legs, causing the moose to crash into the roof of the car or into the windshield, turning the car and its passengers into a can of sardines. Okay, so let's get into the meat and potatoes. Which cars fail the moose test and therefore have a 99.9% chance of putting you in an early grave? The MercedesBenz A Class. The first car to fail the moose test in spectacular fashion was the 1997 Mercedes-Benz A Class. Despite being a premium brand and a luxury car touted as a safety family vehicle, the first generation A Class overturned dramatically during testing. This resulted in the automaker having to spend boatloads of money on adding electronic stability control to new cars and modifying the suspension to eliminate the problem. It also recalled tons of cars to rectify the issue, yet the car still proved to be extremely deadly when facing off with a moose. The 2019 Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. For starters, if you drive a 2019 Toyota RAV4 Hybrid and encounter a moose on the highway while driving at high speeds, you should probably hit it, because swerving to avoid it will definitely kill you. The Toyota RAV4 showed, quote, dangerous behavior when asked to quickly move to the left and to the right at just 42 miles per hour, just as a driver would when suddenly encountering a surprise moose on the road. RAV4s handle initial driver input fine, but when the driver attempts to bring the vehicle back in line, its rear end steps out, and on some occasions the inside wheels lift off the ground. The Porsche Macan. If you drive a Porsche Macan and find yourself head first with a moose on the road, you're screwed. Because if the moose doesn't kill you, the Macan certainly will. While performing the moose test, Porsche's downsides crossover, for what it's worth, didn't flip over, but it did repeatedly skid off course, causing the vehicle to potentially run off the road or even into incoming traffic. The testers ran the test several times and even removed excess weight from the vehicle, and each time the Macan failed spectacularly. This is due to the Macan's faulty active rollover protection system kicking in. When the system detects that the vehicle could drastically oversteer, flip over, or lose its tire, it momentarily applies the brake to the front outside wheel, allowing the vehicle to shed the cornering forces without losing it completely. The bottom line is that the Macan's chassis clearly won't be able to handle the situation without electronic intervention, which may not be that surprising for a top-heavy luxury SUV. As it turns out, money doesn't buy you happiness, just a fabulous tombstone. The BMW M4 Competition. Driving a BMW M4 Competition while encountering a moose on the road can turn into a disaster of epic proportions. During the test, the BMW's rear end stepped out the moment the tester steered it to the right, through the course at just 47 miles per hour. This sudden oversteer took out 2 cones, and despite the driver's best attempts to countersteer and control the slide, it took out another cone when swerving back to the left. What's particularly surprising about the car's behavior is that all the traction and stability control systems were enabled, which could mean that they simply aren't working, or they'll be the cause of your death listed on your death certificate. The Mercedes-Benz CLA. Facing off with the Moose while driving a Mercedes-Benz CLA would be a poor choice as well, as this car failed the Moose test with perfect form and precision. The compact luxury sedan failed the Moose test at speeds of just 47 miles per hour, as it pretty much was all over the place. In fact, it took many attempts, 3 different drivers, and a lower speed of just 41 miles per hour to have it complete the test. Barely. Although testers remarked that the result was still subpar at best and a fatal catastrophe at worst. A combination of moderate body roll, not enough grip on the front tires, understeer, and the electronic stability control system kicking in at certain times made the 2019 Mercedes CLA Coupe a potentially fatal option when avoiding obstacles at high speeds. The Jeep Grand Cherokee. If you drive a Jeep Grand Cherokee, you'll need a steep bump in your life insurance, as this SUV's Moose test results were the exact opposite of safe. These tests were conducted on the 4th generation Grand Cherokee models in 2012, and the experts felt so strongly about the shocking results that they called Jeep engineers to witness the Grand Cherokee's inability to hold itself together. There were no successful runs at over 43 miles per hour, and the test conductors noted that the electronic stability control system and rollover mitigation system didn't work as intended. And when swerving, the Grand Cherokee bounced around, burst tires, and hit cones with rear wheels. The Jeep Wrangler. Coming head-on with a Moose while driving a Jeep Wrangler at high speeds isn't a smart decision either. With the off-road tires that come standard, the Wrangler doesn't manage to stay composed at all, not even at speeds of under 40 miles per hour. The low-grip tires cause the car to understeer during the first sudden swerve, before snapping into oversteer on the third swerve. Imprecise and slow steering certainly didn't help his case either. The Mustang Mach E. Life definitely isn't easy for the Ford Mustang. It's been the butt of so many car crash jokes in recent years that a Stang spinning out leaving a car show is a legit cliche. And then you have the Mustang Mach E, officially wearing Mustang badges but widely dismissed by car enthusiasts as being the poor man's Tesla. Now, with an extremely poor showing in the dreaded Moose test, the Mach E takes another punch on the chin. Or does it? The answer to that question is yes. Encountering a Moose while driving a Mustang Mach E on the highway at high speeds would probably end in disaster. The Mustang Mach E demonstrated poor emergency handling characteristics during its Moose test. At a speed of just 42 miles per hour, EV's backside steps out in dramatic fashion on the second turn of the test, wiping out a few cones before barely coming back under control for the final maneuver. Bumping the speed up to just 45 miles per hour sees the EV leave the course entirely, without completing the last section. Yikes. According to the testers, the Mustang Mach E fails the Moose test due to its electronic stability control system not stepping in to rein the rear end assertively enough. In the test, the Mach E can be seen squirming around, with its tail end showing instability. Even bringing the speed down to only 42 miles per hour didn't see the Mach E pass the test. The Toyota Hilux. The Hilux might be one of Toyota's toughest models, but it only takes a Moose to bring it to the brink, and by the brink, we mean nearly flipping over. Although the 8th generation Hilux, which is pretty much a European version of the Toyota Tacoma, is an off-road vehicle and not a precision sports car. Its dangerous behavior during evasive maneuvers can prove to be deadly. During the test, the Hilux underperformed massively at just speeds of 37 miles per hour, as opposed to its direct competitors which didn't have problems even at higher speeds. As required by law, the Hilux comes standard with electronic stability control, but the absence of an anti-rollover system, a massive weight of 4,600 pounds, a tall ride height, a suspension softer than a Tootsie Roll fruit cup, coupled with too much tire grip, can cause the vehicle to almost flip over during hard turns. The Hilux performed so poorly that testers claimed that, quote, something seriously wrong with Toyota's dynamic safety system. Scientists later concluded that the front of the car had far too much grip, and the rear hardly had any. However, if equipped with bigger wheels, the Hilux's deadly effects diminishes greatly. Although when making hard turns, the truck still lifts the inside wheel, leaving you 6 feet deep when facing off with a Moose.